This is Mick Foley.
Former WWE Superstar Horse over here.
This is Dave LaGreca from Bustin' Open.
I am WWF's longest reigning light heavyweight champion, Gilbert, and you are now
somewhere in the ring.
Somewhere in the ring.
Somewhere in the ring.
Somewhere in the ring. Have a nice day.
Oh boy. We're here. This is the first Somewhere in the Ring that I'm going to be doing on TikTok, as well as, let me shift the camera forward. We're all going to learn here together. Hi. I'm recording an episode by myself today. Ryan is still kicking butt over in Nova Scotia. Pretty sure that's where he is. And look, sometimes getting a guest can be a little bit harder than I would like, but people are busy, man. They got stuff to do, and they aren't always able to join me while my kids are napping, which I understand. But this is Somewhere in the Ring, a podcast where we talk about pro wrestling, and that is not going to change today, but I am going to talk about some very specific pro wrestlers. Because, as I am sure, if you are a pro wrestling fan, you have already seen R-Truth and Carlito, two legends in the company. I would call them both legends. More on that in a little bit. Are not going to have their contracts renewed. They will not be coming back to the company. And it is still shocking. Like, the R-Truth news came out over the weekend. The news for both of them came out over the weekend. And it has yet to dissipate. It has yet to, even last night during Monday Night Raw, it was evident that not only the fans, but even some of the wrestlers missed Carlito. Dom Mysterio was wearing a Carlito shirt. The audience, and missed R-Truth. The audience was chanting for R-Truth consistently, to the point where CM Punk addressed it after the show. It's weird. And now I have talked to, first and foremost, how are you? I hope you are well. I hope everybody is handling this well. It's unfortunate news. And it is things that people are still getting used to and are going to have a hard time getting used to, because of course they are. Because R-Truth it's not even like he wasn't getting used, right? Same with Carlito. They were on TV every week, sometimes working together, sometimes working with main eventers. R-Truth against John Cena was a featured match on Saturday night's main event. R-Truth was used to put over Jeff Cobb, whose name I will learn at some point, I promise. Hello, thanks for joining, everybody. I will learn Jeff Cobb's new name. It's JC something. It sounds like a Bayside High, Saved by the Bell kind of a name. But R-Truth was being used. He is a permanent part. He was a fixture on the show. Even in WWE 2K25, you can get several versions of R-Truth, like of his skins, of his character. And I think that's telling. That doesn't happen for nobodies, for the most part. It doesn't happen for people who the company doesn't see value in. Video games can be more of a showcase for people that they like. People loved R-Truth palling around with Judgment Day. He became a comedy fixture on the shows at a time when I would argue that comedy is lacking. And that will be missed. Like, of course it will. And I have talked on this show before about releases, because it is a business. Like, let's get into some of the unfortunate aspects of things. It is a business. They are trying to make money. They're trying to keep things fresh. They're trying to all those different factors that you can add in. But it is also an entertainment business. And a big part of entertaining people are bringing in these strong personalities, bringing in people that people like and like to watch and are, I don't know, entertained by. So the idea that they could take somebody like R-Truth, who was entertaining people, who was exciting, who had respect for, and again, I'm only talking about fans right now. I will get into the people that are not fans, like the wrestlers, the creatives. We'll get into all that. But just from a fan standpoint, R-Truth got pops. R-Truth was popular. He was exciting. He would come out to the ring and people would freak out. It's same with Carlito. Now, I have talked on Somewhere in the Ring, which if you are not subscribed, please head on over to check us out here on TikTok. Check us out here on the podcast app. However you are consuming this podcast, do it more, and we love you for it. R-Truth and Carlito, I've talked about Carlito a lot on the podcast. Jokingly, I would use the hashtag free Carlito because I didn't love what was going on in Judgment Day with him, because I think he was worth more than that. And to be fair, that would switch all the time because I think he was a good foil for a lot of those other characters. But then to have him, how do I put this? And I kind of sidelined as a character. Let's see. We got some people joining and saying some stuff. Thanks for joining us. Hi to Peralta 88. I won't read everybody's names, but please, if you're here joining me on TikTok, please join along. Tell me some of your favorite memories about Carlito, about R-Truth, if you miss them, which I'm assuming you do, because everybody does. But I was seeing Carlito as somebody he's a generational talent, both with how good he is and the family that he comes from, the wrestling family. There was excitement when he came back to the WWE a few years ago. He even joked in his release about how he would come back in another 13 years. Like, he's cool, man. Carlito's fun, and he was doing good work, even if it wasn't what I wanted for him. He was still putting in the effort, and it was exciting to watch. So to see that kind of tossed aside sucks, man. It's hard. There's a certain point, and I even wonder, and I wonder if anybody else has had this issue. I'm just like, okay, is it me? Is it just that I'm a fan? Is it just a nostalgia for it? Because like I said, I didn't love what was going on with Carlito, what they were using him for. So did I want him to stick around purely for a nostalgia sense? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think back to the times when he was like tearing it up with Chris Masters and main eventing and wrestling for the World Heavyweight for the WWE title. Like, Carlito is that kind of wrestler. He is that kind of character. He is somebody who you can strap a rocket to their back, as they were saying with Jey Uso, and get some good work out of him. And they were using him mainly as like an enhancement talent. And because he's Carlito, he was good at that too. You could argue the same thing about R-Truth. And that's another person where like R-Truth, or it was K-Quick. Was it K-Quick when he first started? I'm going to look that up. Excuse me while I jump to my computer. I think for future reference, just so everybody knows, it was K-Quick when he showed up. I'm realizing now, I'm like, oh, I could record the podcast on my computer while also recording the TikTok on my computer. I think it's my first TikTok live. But I just have a phone sitting on my computer. Looks cool though. I loved K-Quick when he came out, when he was out there with Road Dogg, when they were just like, Road Dogg being a white rapper is the way to go. It's the storyline that we're going to push. The early 2000s. But it was evident immediately how special Ron Killings is and was. And I think that they were seeing that recently as well. I think it would be impossible to think otherwise. I've already talked about that. He was being highlighted and pushed, and he was an integral. I saw people talking about how they thought R-Truth should beat John Cena for the WWE title at Saturday night's main event, and then maybe John Cena wins it back right away. And I didn't disagree with that, because why not? The man has put in the work. The man has been there for so long at this point, working with different groups, doing programs with The Miz, doing programs with Bobby Lashley, and just being hilarious in a natural way. And the comedy, I cannot emphasize enough, because I love pro wrestling. I love pro wrestlers. I think most pro wrestlers are not funny. And it's hard. Comedy is hard for anybody. But I think that most pro wrestlers are not very funny. And R-Truth is effortlessly funny. I think Carlito is also very funny. They listen, they react, they have a way around other people that is enticing and charming as hell. And that's where a lot of comedy comes from. And there is also this ability that they both possess to not be embarrassed. And I do think a lot of wrestlers have that inherently. You kind of have to, I think, when you're doing something as campy and over the top as pro wrestling can be. I think you kind of have to lack that sense of embarrassment. But some people can use it more effectively. Some people can shine more brightly with it. And I think R-Truth and Carlito were those people. Even in the roles that they were in. Like R-Truth, clearly, big part of it was him, running out during a Royal Rumble and trying to make it a Money in the Bank match, or coming out during the Women's Royal Rumble, or saw a clip yesterday that was him just telling Bobby Lashley and MVP that they look like they could eat a big sack of nuts. And he meant it as a compliment. And he kind of, the look on his face when he's like, what? I don't understand. What are you guys upset about? You're big beefy dudes. You probably eat a lot of nuts. It's just funny. And it doesn't feel forced coming from him. It doesn't feel like something that is unnatural. And that's hard. It's weird. It is a weird. It is one of those things where when it happened, when Ryan, my co-host, texted me about his release, I just kind of couldn't believe it. Not know, like, whoa, like in an it just didn't compute right away kind of manner. It didn't make sense to me that they would get rid of somebody like R-Truth. And again, it still doesn't make sense. And it sounds like it didn't make sense to people backstage either. Ryan and I are lucky enough to know people involved with WWE. I have seen people posting about how they will miss R-Truth. People have been talking about that on social media. They're not shy about it. It's kind of like an advantage to, as I've talked about before, the walls of kayfabe coming down, is that people can address their displeasure. They can make it clear that they are not thrilled. Maybe not as much as some others. I'm sure there are some wrestlers that have to, step a bit more quietly to make sure that they don't ruffle any feathers. Check out here. But it's not it's just not the same as it was, in the sense that, like, people have to stay quiet about these kind of things. And I don't think they will. And I don't think the thing that I'm interested in now is whether or not there's a no compete clause on R-Truth's contact or Carlito, because immediately R-Truth is going to work somewhere. Carlito probably will as well. But I think R-Truth might be a little bit sooner. Again, it would depend on if they have any no compete clauses, which I assume is not the case, only because they're not being released early from their contract. Their contract is just coming to an end, which might help them as far as getting other bookings and things right away. But we're not sure. And I don't know when we're going to find that out. It might just be we see R-Truth pop up on TNA in 2 weeks, or we see him pop up like surprise people in 3 months as just Ron Killings, bringing that same kind of signature comedy. Yeah, Carlito could go back to where he was wrestling for the 13 years that he was not a WWE superstar, because it's not like he stopped. The man kept going. It was so cool when Carlito came out, was involved with the Damian Priest Bad Bunny angle. It was so cool to see him kind of get just like pushed again. Like, you could tell the crowd was excited when he showed back up. And again, that gets into like asking the hard questions. Does nostalgia sell t-shirts? Sometimes yes. Is there more to be gained from loyalty than just going off of merch sales? How much of this is TKO's decision and how much of it is Triple H's decision? I think we can make assumptions. I think we can say, oh, Triple H probably didn't want anything to do with this, but we just won't know that for sure until we do. Sorry, checking a little something here. I think the question that has an easier answer is whether or not either of these guys will go to AEW, which I do not think is the case. Carlito, maybe. I don't see R-Truth going there. R-Truth's in his 50s. He looks great. You can tell me he's 35 and I'd believe you. I'm 36. He looks better than I do. But I don't, maybe he wants to hang it up. Maybe he wants to go do other things. But he's in such great physical shape. Like, the match between him and Cena was good. The man can throw down. Cena posting a picture of R-Truth in his gear. I don't think anyone saw this coming. That's what I think really makes it come down to I would err more on the side of, oh, this was probably a TKO decision. Because it just feels like it's out of nowhere. And it wasn't even part of the, WWE cleans house after WrestleMania. That happens pretty much every year and has for some time. They reset. They get rid of people they're not using as much anymore. A plethora of different reasons. They end and cut contracts. Carlito and R-Truth are just not getting their deals renewed. And to wait for that, it feels like they were, this is just me theorizing, but it feels like they were probably close to them getting it renewed. And somebody looked at the numbers and said, why are we paying this person this much money? And then gone. If I'm to put on my business hat, then business shirt, not this Hawaiian one that I'm wearing, I think I would say it would probably make more sense to cut Carlito based strictly on how they were using him. Again, I think he could have been pushed harder, and I've talked about that on the podcast before. But they clearly, just liked him in that role at Judgment Day as this kind of enhancement talent. And they just gave up. Which feels weird. It feels strange. Even if it makes more sense, just with him being this kind of legacy talent at the company. With R-Truth, it makes less sense. Because not only were they using him consistently, he was beloved. He would get pops. He would get laughs. I cannot think of anyone else on the roster right now that will get the kind of laughs that R-Truth gets. Maybe that's not important to them. But again, it's entertainment. And I'm glad that they're back to calling it wrestling. I don't need it to be called sports entertainment. But entertainment is an aspect of it. That is undeniable. So when you have somebody that's so in the pocket with what they do and what their role is, getting rid of them seems silly. And that could be more of a like a change in direction. You can have, well, I guess El Grande Americano gets some laughs. Maybe not even as much. Like El Grande Americano is funny in concept, but it's not as pound per pound funny as R-Truth is. It is not as consistently hilarious as R-Truth is, because it's also more of a gimmick. R-Truth was just a person. That's just who he is. He's hilarious. You can write him stuff and he will make, even if it's something that might not be that funny. Like him getting in between Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest to hold up his belt because he just thinks he's a part of that. Like another wrestler could do that and it won't hit the same, because R-Truth also had years of built-in comedic aspects to his character. It's weird. It's weird, and it is hard to think about, and it is one of the more jarring aspects of the business. But that you have somebody where it really doesn't feel like they were treated as a person in this sense. This feels like a numbers decision, and for somebody like R-Truth, that's a bummer. For Carlito as well, and for like Valkyrie got released this weekend. Like there are people, these are human beings, and it sucks when people lose their jobs, even if it's like a business decision, even if you can square it by the numbers. These people have careers, they have things that they are doing, and then those things are upended. Because it's also undeniable that WWE is a platform that can help people remain successful and happy and healthy. But if they lose that support, if they lose that system and they have to move on, something might not be that height. Something might not get them that kind of money. What if they can't find consistent wrestling work elsewhere? The business is better right now in the sense that there are more avenues for people to work and succeed, but there are still like the ones where you can make life-changing, I don't have to worry about money as much money, are still fewer and farther between. WWE is still the best. Obviously, and AEW is giving people money. AEW and WWE are going to be the places where you are probably going to earn the most money. And anything else, you can earn money in other places, but it takes upending your life or being on something that's more consistent or working a little bit more. You just start to think about them as human beings, as we should. They're not just characters. They are not just there for our amusement. They're people. And I even talked, I wouldn't say flippantly, but I maybe more realistically about the releases this year that happened post-Mania, of which there were quite a few, because I was like, those decisions make a little bit more sense. And those people were younger for the most part, and have other places to go and have other avenues and other things that they can try and maybe even come back. Some of them came back. Kairi Sane is already back. So that is possible. Who knows? Maybe we'll see R-Truth at Money in the Bank. Yeah. CM Punk seemed to like, he said something about the, you don't cheer for somebody who isn't here last night after Raw. So maybe we could see R-Truth come back. Not sure. Not sure what's going to happen. I saw somebody talk about how he could probably show up at Slammiversary this year. He has a history at TNA. That would make a lot of sense. And then what's kind of fun is over at TNA, we could see him come back to WWE eventually anyway, in one way or another, because they have that partnership. Maybe there's something, pardon me, already in place to get him on the TNA screens and then back on WWE television. But it won't be the same. There was something about what R-Truth was allowed to do recently that showed a level of respect that the company had for him, I think, and his position there and what he was capable of. And now to have him just gone, people are going to remember that. People that work for the company are going to remember that they can stick it out, be around, be as loved as R-Truth was and is. But if they don't meet a certain metric, it won't matter. The rug can still be pulled out from underneath them. And that's scary in any business. But for one where you're already trying so hard to get where you're going, where you're already trying so hard to get a contract, to get that spot, to get TV time, to get attention, to make yourself appear valuable, you can have the appearance of value to all these other people for all these other different reasons, and it still won't matter. And that is fragile. And it's going to make people think differently. It also might make people think like, okay, how do I avoid that? Maybe they know. Maybe there is more said inside the company currently about what's happening, what they're going through, why R-Truth was fired, why they decided that someone who was an integral, and I will say integral because he was shown so much for it, and give it his reaction. Like R-Truth was almost like an audience surrogate for what John Cena was going through. He was the person in the company that was reacting for us to what was going on. And they were using that well, and now gone. Gone. So, like, if you are a wrestler for the company, how do you square that? How do you go, I'm going to be okay? Unless you're like John Cena or Randy Orton. Like, can you imagine? You imagine. Now, he already said he wouldn't wrestle past 50, but like, what if they do something like this to AJ Styles? What if they do something like this to, like, I know we already saw it, like Braun Strowman's been there a long time. There is, I don't want to say there's no loyalty because that would be a silly thing to say. And obviously there are people in the company that have been there for a long time who have a high standing, who get a lot of TV time, who are pushed, who are brought back regularly, who are used even when they're hurt. But it's hard to look at R-Truth being released and not see it as a loyalty issue, as an issue with them. Again, just seeing him as a number. We might find out more in the upcoming weeks. We might not. He might talk about it because kayfabe is pretty much dead. Maybe he'll get on Chris Van Vliet in a little bit. Maybe he'll get an interview where he can just kind of speak his piece, talk about why he thinks it happened. But right now he's being the, both him and Carlito they weren't like, oh, screw you. I can't believe this is happening. You guys are never going to, they did what they have to do, which is to say, thank you so much for all the time and the opportunity, and see you guys on the flippity flip. Smell you later. But maybe that might change. Maybe they might read the writing on the wall and be like, I don't think they're ever going to let me back. I'm going to burn that bridge. But I think something equally as scary is that they might not know themselves. They might have just gotten a call or gotten a message from HR or the business side of things where they were just like, we're not renewing your contract. And then that's it. No reason given, no nothing. It's end. It's over. Good luck. And then the Simpsons style, I don't recall saying good luck. Trying to think of like what my favorite, like real solid favorite R-Truth. I loved Carlito. I can think of like a bunch of different. I loved when I really wanted him to win the Elimination Chamber that he was in back in like 2005 or 2006, when he was like him teaming with Chris Masters is such like an interesting team, and they were such an interesting like corporate face. That's probably my favorite kind of like memory of Carlito. That time when he was really on top because he deserved it. With R-Truth, the stuff he was doing with Lashley was so fun. I loved the stuff he was doing with Miz. I know that's like recent. I don't want to have some like recency bias, but he was doing some cool stuff with the Miz. He was working hard. He was doing fun stuff with Judgment Day. He made the Judgment Day stuff that I was getting tired of feel fresher. So we'll see. We'll see. We're going to keep it short today because it's just me. I got kids I got to take care of. But as always, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. If you followed along on TikTok, I'm going to start trying to do this, go live whenever we're recording the episode, which will be fun, or I'm going to attempt to. Should have a guest next week that's also on TikTok, so I'm going to try to do both. We're going to try to get crazy here. But if you enjoyed listening to the show, as always, like, subscribe, check us out somewhere in the ring on YouTube, on the old podcast app. We are out there. Follow along on TikTok. I'm Half White Son of a Black Man on TikTok, but Somewhere in the Ring is on TikTok. Go to patreon.com/somewhere in the ring. Throw us a couple shekels if you feel so inclined. Get us things like new mics, new cameras, so you can see all the pores in my face. And I wrote and directed a short horror film called Pay the Tithe that you can watch on Vimeo, and one called Chemistry. I wrote a short comedy film called Chemistry Test with last week's guest, Tim Barnes, that you can watch on YouTube. And check out Tim, because Tim's great. But thank you, as always. To end the show, we always ring the bell, and I'm not going to do it this time. Feels too final. I'm talking about R-Truth and Carlito. I'm not going to ring the bell. I am just going to say that we here at the show love Carlito. We love R-Truth. We'll miss them very much. And it's not going to be the same without them. And that sucks. Be well, everybody.